Hello and welcome to our post-Sony press conference reaction show. It's about 4:30 in the UK time. We've got hot beverages. More importantly, we've got you, dear viewers. I've also got Dan Dawkins and editor of official PlayStation magazine, Ben Wilson. Chaps, the Sony conference, for a long time, Dan, I was goading you and saying Sony have had an open goal. They've missed it. You described it potentially as being the Diana Ross penalty, the missed penalty in terms of disastrousness. They open with a bunch of Vita and PS3 stuff that, as worthy as it might have been, I don't think anyone particularly wanted to hear about, especially after Microsoft had machine-gunned their audience with games. But midway it picked up with the indie sort of stuff, then they kind of built to a crescendo, so they showed the Order 1867, 92, that looked good. But really, it was only at the end, they came out like George Foreman doing the rope-a-dope. No, Muhammad Ali, I've got my boxing metaphors wrong. Like Muhammad Ali coming off the ropes and slugging with no DRM, no online check-in, and then the big blow, the price. Have Sony won E3? It's a terrible trite thing, but that's what people want to hear.
Those 10 minutes won E3, and I don't think you find anyone on Twitter or the internet who'd say otherwise. Exactly what you said. First hour, clumsy, slow, pacing was off, lots of bad, puffy Sony, lots of talk about nothing. In stark contrast to Microsoft, who came right out of the blocks and went game, exclusive, game. You know, Microsoft presentation, so much more slick. But when Sony came out, they were fighting the Leviathan mega boss. When he opened up his weak spot, Sony came out Rocky slow-mo style. Use games, no DRM, headbutt, price, and it was absolutely killer.
There was whole chunks early though, Dan, where they were talking about the music service, and the man from the film company came out, and that was
not the SEN.
Well, they did keep that quite short compared to the other ones.
They kept it short, but even then, it was like you couldn't. I mean, I couldn't tell you a single word they said.
Yeah, the SEN bit was like someone wedging Krypton where the sun don't shine with Superman. I thought that was absolutely terrifying.
But come on, Ben, you can be the full voice of cheerleading. You were manning a live blog at the time with your readers. What were they saying? What was their reaction?
Oh, the reaction was incredible. Like 99% positive. I think the thing is, most people realise with the next gen consoles that good games are going to come. Like, you know, they'll be, whether they're first party, third party, there'll be a lot of good games out there.
This is the internet, Ben. There's no time for patience.
People want a cheap, the cheaper console, and they will be able to trade in their games. And I think that is the two boxes. To be honest, the console looked lovely, but I don't think people ultimately even care what the consoles look like. They just want the right price and the option to buy games and then trade them in. I think those are the two key places where Sony won.
I mean, I've never heard anything. People were, I mean, to their eternal shame, people were chanting Sony. I've never heard anything like that. You know, I've been to all the Nintendo ones could sometimes get a bit weird like that.
In 13 years of following or attending the conferences, you've had moments where you've gone, that was special, that was amazing. I've never seen the crowd openly cheering and chanting, Sony, Sony. And then people waving championship belts. It was utterly insane.
There was a point where
I think those belts were in your mind.
There were five or six.
They were belts. You look back at the footage.
There's a point where it was like a Dwayne The Rock Johnson promo where for 5 or 6 sentences in a row they just cheered out like wildly at the end of each sentence. It was like nothing else.
Do you two think that the damage that Sony's inflicted by really going after, like you said, Dan, Microsoft's obvious weak spot, is this something now that Microsoft will have to respond to? And I mean, really, it's on three fronts, isn't it? There's the always on, there's the trading stuff, and then the price. On all three, they've effectively been outmaneuvered. And I think it's interesting for Sony because they must have sat there for the last couple of weeks watching Microsoft get embroiled in this kind of firestorm about it, and they must have had to weigh up the benefits to them of doing this, and they must be gambling on, and I think correctly, that none of the third parties will walk away from them. Even the third parties who we suspect wanted the DRM stuff, none of them are going to walk away from the PlayStation user base over this. So then, what are you going to get, like a strange halfway house where some Microsoft games have publisher-imposed trading restrictions, but Sony has none at all? That seems like an untenable situation to me for Microsoft.
Yeah, I think the position they put, say, Activision in is, do you say, yes, I want, some of my feedback on Xbox, but on PlayStation, no, I don't. That's not going to survive. So, Xbox have got a really tough choice where, they either continue on the path they're on and further clarify a failing policy, or, they just go, do you know what? And even this is going to be embarrassing. The best thing they could do is probably to bin it off. But then it's like
they can't cut the price already. They've only just announced it.
Not the price of the machine, but they can come back on the always on, the every 24 hours check in, the ability to trade used games. I mean, straight away we saw that video that Sony had produced, the 20-second video of like how to exchange a game with a friend. It's just simple and devastating. It's just, here's my game, give it to you. The end. That's how you trade games. And it was just so simple, and it was so not like old Sony in terms of reacting to sort of like a rival's weakness and just seizing on it and going, we're going to be bold, we're going to not hear the voices of our partners and just go in and do the right thing.
I think Sony's been smart almost throughout this sort of PR battle. But Ben, in terms of the price end, that must have been about as good as you could have hoped for. $349 in the UK. I mean, that's only £50 more than the original PlayStation cost.
Yeah,
PS1.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and the PS3 was what, $429 when it came out, and obviously the initial reaction earlier to the Microsoft conference was that the Xbox One was £4 more expensive than the original PS3, and obviously in the time difference since then, people have got less money. I think the big challenge for Sony was to come out there with a really competitive price, and it was even cheaper than I expected, to be honest. We had an office sweepstake, and I think Joel had the lowest price at $399 which is what was correct.
Let's speak to your colleague Joel Gregory now. We're going to bell him up on the Skype and see how he's getting on. He's just been at the press conference right now, so let's do that. So we're joined now live from LA by official PlayStation Magazine deputy editor Joel Gregory, who's just been watching the Sony press conference. Joel, what was the mood like in the auditorium and coming out?
Well, it was a bit different on the way out than sort of about 30 minutes or so in. On the way out, everyone's been really positive. It's quite a lot of buzz. A couple of very big cheers towards the end for the used game announcement and the price specifically. It took a while to get going. I think everyone was a bit nervous when they didn't jump in with PS4 and had Vita and PS3 to start with. It took about half an hour.
Were you a whooping and a hollering, or were you maintaining journalistic decorum?
I maintained decorum for the most part. There was a slight bit of whooping and hollering about the used game situation. The audience reaction to that was incredible, and I was sat right down the front in the midst of all the mayhem.
I mean, I've been to a lot of Sony press conferences, and I've never seen a reaction like that. Were people surprised coming out that they've been quite so aggressive in terms of actually going directly after Microsoft?
I think people were surprised in that it was so transparent. They almost called Microsoft out by name. I mean, it was directly addressing almost every concern that people had in the wake of Microsoft. So I think people were, slightly surprised in how upfront they were about it, but just sort of relieved and really delighted, actually. Everyone came out with a big smile on their face and just sort of chatting to people outside, overhearing conversations. Everyone seems to have sort of really enjoyed what they've seen and feeling in a good way about things.
And price-wise, what's been the reaction like that amongst other journalists and that? Because we're looking at $100 cheaper than Xbox One in the US and about £80 cheaper in the UK. It's a fair old difference. Do people think that's going to be very significant in the kind of battle between the two machines?
Yeah, seemingly that was the moment when people sort of said, well, it's all sewn up now. And obviously it's far too early to say something like that, but it did have a big effect on people's perceptions of PS4 but versus Xbox One. I think that was one of the lingering questions after Microsoft went out this morning with their price announcement. People sort of thought, how low can Sony go? I think everyone thought they would go lower, but that is a very significant drop, and everyone was really pleased.
And for you, any other particular highlights from the games you saw or anything else?
I thought, I don't know if you guys got it on the stream, there was a lot of technical problems with the Assassin's gameplay footage, but it actually looked really good when it worked, and Watch Dogs likewise. I was really quite interested about Final Fantasy, which kind of hasn't been on the radar for a long time and looked very different to what I was expecting. But really quite exciting, had great scale and stuff like that. And although it was probably more of a low-key ending than people hoped for, I think the Destiny actually, if you stop and look at it, it looks like a really exciting prospect, and everything looked absolutely beautiful. All the in-game stuff really did look exceptionally good, and I think that's what people really wanted to see was less CGI and more gameplay. And I think when you look back, there was actually a fair whack of that, which was good.
It didn't look quite as beautiful at our end, because just like your face is now, your handsome face is being artefacted by the cruelty of Skype. Just finally, they made a big push, Sony, with the indie stuff. Do people think that's going to be a significant factor?
Yeah, actually, until sort of things picked up towards the end, the indie kind of splurge they did went down really well, actually. I mean, some of the games sort of out there now, but I think that was one of the things that people gave Sony the upper hand with after the two initial reveals, was the indie situation, and being able to self-publish is a big thing. And there was a lot of nice reaction to that, and I think that's one of those things that's just going to grow and grow once the machine's live. So everyone was really pleased with that, and it's pretty exciting stuff that isn't what we expect. It's nice to have that variation.
Joel, that's great stuff. Glad you enjoyed the show. Get into the convention centre and we'll hopefully speak to you soon. I forgot to ask you, Joel, what would you score the Sony press conference out of 10? You can use half marks if you want.
I would probably go 7.5.
Oh, Joel, that's insane. The Xbox boys said 9 for this.
Well, Dave obviously scored. You know me. I'm a harsh critic, but I'll go with 7.5. I'd have liked to have seen maybe one or two more new IPs. I think that was the only thing that let it down, but price and used games was really strong. So yeah, pleased overall, very pleased.
All right, Joel Gregory, you've thrown our entire system out of whack, but thank you nonetheless, and we'll see you soon. So thanks to Joel Gregory there, but we don't want this to become a Sony Defence Force fanboy session. So a nagging doubt I had was that of the exclusives Sony had, there wasn't anything really that was kind of brand new that perhaps blew me away or surprised me. What stood out for you guys in terms of what Sony offered that Microsoft didn't have? Because they closed on Destiny, which I thought looked great, but is a multi-format game fundamentally. You know, Xbox has its Titanfall, it's got its Halo. Where was Nathan Drake? Where was The Last Guardian? Where was all that stuff?
The best gameplay they showed by far was Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, and Destiny, all of which may have degrees of exclusive elements, but almost negligible. But they were the best bits of gameplay footage. The best pure exclusive was probably unbelievably The Order 1886. That again,
which is Whitechapel, Jack the Ripper, King Arthur in a steampunky werewolf-infested London, which at least is interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting vibe, not that well tapped. Probably going to be a badass action game.
Could you even tell me what sort of game it is at this point, though?
You're guessing on the pedigree of Sony Santa Monica and
Ready at Dawn.
So it's not a real thing to show, is it? And again, Microsoft have showed more tangible exclusives. Certainly with something like Titanfall, that's a huge exclusive.
So you think Sony still has work to do on that front to show its really big guns?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, obviously the games we'd expect, like Uncharted 4, wasn't shown.
And a Cage
what
game.
happened
You expect
to
a
The
Cage
Last
game
Guardian?
where they showed a tech demo, which was impressive, but it's just a tech
but what
demo.
was it? Like, what is that game? Is it an acting game? Yeah. Is it actually a Dark Sorcerer game?
Is it even a game?
I mean, look at the Alan Page game. That's turned into like an Afghanistan war game.
I thought I was having a psychotic break at that point.
What's happened to that? So whatever that the Dark Apprentice game becomes, I don't know. But Sony have got strength in depth, and they can still wheel that stuff out.
So Ben, we talked with Joel briefly about Sony really making a big play for the kind of the indie developers, and they had a really strong suite of interesting looking titles. But from speaking to your readers, how important do you think those things are? Is it the kind of thing that actually just it's people on the internet who talk about it and go, oh yeah, I'm really into the indie games? But
I don't think it's just people on the internet. I think there is a credible following, but at the same time, I think the majority are out there. They want the Call of Duties, they want the FIFAs. On PlayStation, they want the Uncharted. I think that would be the one area where there'll be a lot of people pleased by the price cut, etc. But in terms of the games shown, I think that I really expected there to be a Naughty Dog game there. I think The Last of Us is out next week. After that, they must be working on something, and you would hope it would be.
They're a 2-game studio, aren't they now?
Exactly, yeah. And I was surprised that wasn't there. That would be my one sad note to end on for my analysis of the show.
Well, the other I don't want to say bum note, but I mean, PS Plus is a really strong service, and the expansions to that and the fact that it will persist over PS3, Vita and 4 seem really great. The price of it's good, but it also sounded like from PS4 you will have to have a PS Plus account to play multiplayer. Is that what you understood? It was just tucked in at one sentence, wasn't it?
That's how we interpreted it, and there was a few reports coming immediately after the show. I mean, we came straight down here and filmed this, but that seemed to be the way it was. It was headed that you'll have to pay $5 a month for PlayStation Plus access, and that will give you online play as well as all the other benefits you get from PlayStation Plus. A really intriguing part of that, though, is they did say for the first year, Drive Club would essentially be free, and that means you're actually getting. You might pay $5 for 12 months, but you're getting a free, $50 worth of game anyway. So it should, if they continue to provide the same value they have in PS Plus in the past, you really won't be losing anything from becoming a subscriber.
I mean, to put it another way, even in the price differential between Xbox One and PlayStation 4, which is $100, if you're paying $5 a month for the privilege of being online, you've got effectively 20 months of it free.
And you've still got to play for Xbox Live if you want to have an Xbox anyway. So.
Exactly.
So we'll just quickly wrap up with some of the other announcements there was Mad Max, there was Elder Scrolls Online coming to PS4,
Final Fantasy
and Final Fantasy
13 turning into 15.
That looks surprisingly good, I thought. Final Fantasy 15, quite ambitious, and again, Square do worlds like almost no one else in terms of their scale, and the art design's fantastic.
All right, so
I'll just say, of all the games announced tonight, the one that people went really mad for on Twitter and on a live blog was Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah,
more than
Kingdom
any of the
Hearts
others.
3, wow.
People absolutely
Yeah.
love that series. They love Square, they love Disney. It's the meeting of those two minds.
It's not for me. So Ben, let's wrap up with what your favourite moment of the conference was, and then score it out of 10 for me. Ignore Joel's ridiculous grandstanding.
I can't give it full marks because I think games-wise it missed an Uncharted, a game of that calibre, a real marquee PS4 announcement. I did think Destiny looked really good. It was a good game to end on, but obviously we already knew it was happening. In terms of the score, I have to go with a 9 really, because I think Sony, the 3 tick boxes they needed to hit were show the box, get the price right, get the DRM right, and I think on all 3 they delivered.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Microsoft earlier today was fantastic press conference in terms of its execution, and the pacing was absolutely taut, and it was the best conference Microsoft could have done given their hand. I thought Sony probably could have paced theirs, much, much better. The first hour was really all over the shop, but when they delivered so hard, and on that strength alone, I'll go with an 8.
I think the scoring system's gone out the window.
Yeah.
You gave Microsoft an 8.5
Yeah,
earlier.
I know. I'm just saying, Sony was a 5 for ages, but when it rained hard, it was an 11. I can't do that maths too
All right,
much.
I'll stay with the boxing metaphor. I think I said to you earlier, I felt like Microsoft had left it all in the ring. They'd done everything they possibly could, but like you said, Sony had an avenue to land the knockout blow, and the big question was whether they would take it. And for long stretches of it, I didn't think they would either. So for that, I would give them a 9, and I would pick, I think, Destiny as my favourite game. I'd found it quite tedious in the run-up when Bungie had been talking about having a sort of a trilogy that would last 10 years and that, but you forget how good they are at building universes of interesting characters and that kind of big sci-fi epic sweep. There's going to be a really interesting battle between Titanfall and Destiny, I think. But yeah, strong start to the first day of E3. We'll be here throughout the week, reporting back, hopefully slightly less tired. Do hit subscribe and keep up with us.